Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So, in this session, we will discuss the nurse-client relationship. So, in this chapter, what's the thing that we will discuss? We will define the concept of nursing-client relationship. We will describe the characteristic of therapeutic nurse-client relationship. We will analyze the 4 phases of nursing-client relationship. Actually, those 4 phases also we got it in the introductory unit, if you remember. We will discuss also the task on each of those phases in the client-patient relationship, and discuss the therapeutic use of self in nurse-client relationship. So those are the 5 objectives that we will cover during this session. So, about the definition and the key concept. In the key concept in therapeutic communication, we have what we call it the Thor relationship. Thor relationship, which is developed by Martin Peppers. It make that there is equal relationship. So equal relationship marked by respect. So the relationship, it has to be within equal level, and it has to be marked by mostly the thing that we have to concentrate on it, the respect between the 2 parties, between the nurse or between the health worker and the client. Also, it has to be mutuality should be there, and also reciprocity, which is a mutually beneficial relationship with a balanced level of giving and taking. So we have to balance between giving and taking. So also in Pepper's work form of the theoretical foundation for using the confirming responses in which the helping person identified and observable strength of another. So we have to find out the strength of others in communications and dealing with them, and also we have to comment on that in a collaborative relationship. So the relationship, it has to be should be a collaboration in the relationship and helping relationship. We also, in our communication with our client, we have to be most empathy. What's the suggestion for facilitating the empathy in our communication? So those are some suggestions that will help us to be more empathy during our communication with our client. How it can be? We have to be active listener. What we mean by active listener? What we mean by active listener? Listening carefully and yes, and understanding everything from the other party. So you have to listen attentively to all the words that's spoken by the others, and observing also the non-verbal communication, non-verbal signs from the other party, in order to understand it well. So this is the meaning of active listeners. So careful to listen carefully to the client concern use open-ended question also, avoid using closed-ended question. But for the use of the question, it depends upon the situation itself. We cannot say that completely we will not use the closed-ended question. But it depends upon the situation. So when we are coming to, when we want a certain answer, in this case we will use the closed-ended question. Tune into physical and psychological behavior also that express the client point of view. So we have also to concentrate in the physical and psychological behavior of our client. We have also to do self-check. Self-check often to if we are using a stereotype or a premature understanding of this client issues. So we have to avoid stereotyping. We have to avoid stereotype in our relationship on, what is the meaning of stereotyping, by the way? Huh?
Maybe situation.
Sorry?
Like situation.
What that situation? Everything is that situation.
Hard work, maybe.
I didn't.
Hard work.
No. What's the meaning of stereo?
Clear.
No. What we mean by stereotyping in relationship? It is taken from stereotype. Stereotype, the recording. What you are recording, when you are repeating the same, you are repeating the same words to me. So stereotyping, you are repeating the same thing, similar thing to all, which is might not be convenient with that situation. Or it might be a generalized thing that we might say it in some of those situations. So we have to avoid those stereotypes words. The repetitive thing, which is the patient is fed up from them. So did you understand what's stereotyping here? So we have to check of us, we should not use continuously the stereotyping in communicating with our client. A premature understanding also of the client issues. We have to understand it fully. Not to take some hints and to make ourselves that we understand the thing. Set also aside judgment of personal biases. Sometimes when we in our relationship, normal relationship or in social relationship, if we see a person from the beginning, we will give a certain judgment to that person. That this person might be so and so and. This will affect our ability to deal with that person, as this might be a barrier of communicating with that person. But here, when we are dealing with our client, we should not have a prejudgment on them. We have to do the assessment with them. We will continue for the suggestion of facilitating the empathy. As we said, we have to be actively listener. Use more open-ended question rather than closed-ended question. Tune into physical and psychological behavior that express the client point of view. Do self-check often for stereotyping, and we explain what's the meaning of stereotyping, and also avoid premature understanding of a client issues. We have to understand it fully. Set aside your personal judgment about anything related to your client and deal with him according to the situation. Be tentative in your listening responses and ask for validation more frequently in order to understand properly what your client meant by that. Mentally picture the client situation and ask appropriate question to secure the information about the area or issue you are not clear about in your interview with your patient. Give yourself a time also to think about what the client has said before responding or before asking the next question. Sometimes when we are in a hurry, we are thinking of the second question before getting the answer of the question that we ask our client. So always don't do that. Try to give the time for your client to express himself, understand the question or the answer of your client, then you will go for the second question. Mirror the client level of energy and language to be authentic in your responses and in your relationship. So the response also should be within the authentic use. Authentic يعني روح الرياضية بمعنى. That you have to be use the sense of humor also while you are dealing with your client. So the characteristic of therapeutic nurse-client relationship, it has to be a client-centered. So the concentration is in our client. He is the primary source of our information in the communication. He is the primary source of knowledge, the primary source of information regarding to his case and his disease. So from maturity also to partnership. So the relationship also, it has to move from to be mutual relationship, and also it is a partnership. We are sharing in a mean of what? How we are sharing them in this case? What's your plan for your client? What you are doing for your client? Why we are interviewing him? For what purpose? To know what's the problem in order to
give life treatment.
to give treatment or to plan your nursing care plan. So the nursing care plan that you have to plan or you have to prepare, it has to be a partnership with your patient. It means that the patient should be actively engaged in that plan. He should be a part of the planning. If any plan, if we want to do any plan, if we engage the person who is responsible for that plan in the planning process, in this case, he will have the sense from internal to perform it. But if we have a ready-made plan and we are telling you that you have to apply this plan, in this case, we might have a resistance, isn't it? So always, we have to have a partnership. We have to engage the client in the planning process. Professional also boundaries. In the professional boundaries, you know that in our relationship, the relationship and in communication, there are boundaries of communication. There are borders for communication. There is the intimate distance that it is used mostly between those who are having a very close relationship. We have also the social distance. The social distance when we are dealing with those that we don't know them. But here, in the relationship with our client, we might go to the intimate also relationship with the intimate distance. Why? It is according to our profession, according to our work that we want to do with our client. When we want to do some kind of assessment, even when checking vital signs. So we are going toward the patient, we are going toward touch or even. So we are going very closely to that client. So when it is within the work that we are doing, it will be accepted. So we have to know our boundaries. You know, we have to know when we have to be in a direct contact with our patient and when we have to have a more distance between us and our clients when communicating with him. So, about the professional boundaries, we have sometimes what we call it boundaries violation. Boundaries violation, it is a bad use of communication, bad way of using communication. Boundaries violation. Sometimes some of those who are communicating with their client, they might use also the benefit of the relationship for some personal benefits. So it might be changed. We have to avoid those changes. It might be changes also to sometimes to sexual harassment. It is considered from boundaries violation, and it is ethically not accepted. So sexual encounters with the client, personal also disclosure, to be open with that client, to give all information about us as a nurse or as a health professional to our client. Our relationship, it has to be within the profession. It has to be in order to solve his problem, in order to clear out or to perform the objective that's set out according to the patient case. It should not go beyond that. If it went beyond that, also there are some bylaws in all institutions that might be applied to you. So sometimes it might go also to business relationship. So it is not only the care, we are turning from the objective of the relationship to other relationship, which is business relationship. If we find that the patient is having some companions and it will go to vitamin wow, wasta, and all of those things. There is also boundary crossing. Boundary crossing, the level of involvement also, it might be changed. There is a limitation of the level of involvement in the care also. When if you remember one of the definition of nursing, one of them, it was a short one, which is helping the client to get rid of that help. Did you remember that? Huh? So, the objective of our nursing care is helping the client to get rid of that help. It means that we are helping him to do his need by himself, because he will not be with us for the whole life. He has to serve himself later. When there is a change due to the illness, we are helping him to overcome that change. And then he will be able to deal with that. So our involvement, it should be according to the limitation of that. According to the need of the client. Did you understand this point of you? So our involvement, our care that we are giving, it has to be according to the client need. It might be we should not also go crossing the boundaries. One of the crossing of the boundaries, meeting outside the work. We should not, after the working time, we should not go to meet the patient outside the working time. There are others who are taking care even if the patient is in bed for a long period of time. You are doing your work within that shift. After that, you are giving over to others. Also, asking about personal details. We should not ask for a personal details unless it is needed for the care and for our plan. So personal details, we should not ask about it unless it is needed for the care. We have also to use therapeutic use of ourselves. From therapeutic use of ourselves, we have what we call it the authenticity, which is, it is required to recognition of the personal vulnerabilities and strength and limitation. So we have to evaluate the patient strength and limitation of doing any procedure or doing any limitation regarding to activities of living, regarding communication, and to deal with that. Presence, which is the capability to know when to provide help and when to stand back. So we have to be present to the patient. Presence here, it means that we have to see ourselves, as we said before, the involvement, our involvement. It should be about, we have to know the capability and when we have to provide help for the client and according to his need, and when we have to stand back and the client will take over and do the help, do that by himself. Self-awareness, we have to understand our personal values, feeling, attitude, strength, and limitation. Because that it will be explicit to the client, and we have to think of all of that while dealing with our client, and also we have to understand in the other side the values, beliefs, and feeling of and the strength of the other party or the client. So each of us have to understand the other in order to work properly and to give the proper care for our client, because our communication, it has to we have to get a benefit from that communication by giving the proper care for our client. So if we are understanding each other properly from all aspects, in this case, it might be helpful for us and for the client to serve the objective and the care. There are some key questions for the reflection in client-centered interaction. We said that we have to concentrate on client-centered of communication, or our communication. It should be client-centered. So, what are the key questions that we have? It has to be reflected in the that concept. I have to ask myself, can I behave in some way that will be perceived by the other person as trustworthy and as a dependable or constant in some deep sense? So I have to ask myself those questions. Can I do that? I am able and can perform that behavior properly. Also, I will be communicated unambiguously when I am communicating with my client. Am I clear? Am I use a term that's understood by the client properly, or it is ambiguous? He didn't understand me well. Can I let myself experience positive attitudes toward this other person, attitude of warmth and caring, liking, interest, and also respect? So, did I do that? Can I let myself experience this positive attitude? Do I use those positive attitudes during my relationship, during communication with my client? Can I be strong enough as a person to be separated from the others? We said that the stages of communication, and toward the end, we have to terminate the relationship. The therapeutic communication, it has a limited period. So, in this case, we have to have in ourselves and in our client that this relationship, it has a limitation. It is not a social relationship, it is a therapeutic relationship that it has to be limited to a period of time, according to the period that we will stay with the client in giving the care. Can I let myself enter fully into the world of my client, also feeling and personal meaning, and see also this as he or she does? So it means that, can I understand all the aspects of my client properly as he wants me to understand them? Can I act with sufficient sensitivity that my behavior will not be perceived as a threat in the relationship? Do I am always observing my behavior, and my behavior is within the accepted manner, the accepted behavior that will not threat the relationship between me and my client? Is it the respective behavior? Is it the mutual behavior between me and the client? Because if the client feel at any time that respect might not be there, or my knowledge is not up to that he want. I'm not answering his question. I'm not giving care properly. In this case, the relationship or it will be affected and he will not be cooperative with me. The trust will be lost in this case. If the trust is lost, in this case, we will not be able to continue a proper therapeutic relationship. Can I meet this other also individual as person who is in the process of becoming or will be or will I be bound by his or her past and by my past? So this is the judgment or previous judgment on the client. Do I have some judgment on that client or not? Prejudgment is there or not? We should not use the prejudgment because the prejudgment, it will prevent us from doing the proper communication with others. If we are having prejudgment for any person. Yani, let us say, I have a judgment about one student, that whatever I do, he will not understand me. So in this case, what will come from my side? I will not try to explain more for him. This might be the response. So if I am not using this judgment, in this case, whatever is there, for everyone, he is having the ability. Regardless to the limitation of the ability, I have to try to understand him and also to explain for him in a way that he could understand. Did you understand this point? Okay. In nursing roles also, those are the important, from the important 6 roles of in the client or the nurse-client relationship. That is called the Pupillus 6 nursing roles. Those 6 nursing roles, it suggests how we are dealing with others in all situations. So sometimes we are dealing with a client as what we call it, what we can say it, the stranger role. The stranger role. How we are dealing with a stranger. Stranger means that for the first time we are dealing with that person. And when we are getting a new client, mostly he is a strange for us, and we are a stranger for him. So what we have to do, we have to receive the client in the same way one meet a stranger in other life situation. We have provide and accepting the climate that built a trust. So we have to try and concentrate in building trust at the beginning. When we build the trust between us, in this case, the way of communication, it will be easier. So, dealing with the client as a stranger, mostly it is used at the beginning of the interview or in the orientation phase and pre-orientation phase. So we have to be prepared in order to deal with the client as a stranger and in order to understand ourselves and our ability to build a trust with a client. So, the second thing, we have to be a resource role. We as a health worker, we are as a resource, the resource for information for our client. So we have to be ready for answering his questions and interpret the clinical treatment data for him, giving information about his case. So we have to understand his case well in order to have a good communication with that client. If you are prepared, if you are studying the file of your client well also, if you are giving an understandable answer for his question, and also your answer is always, you are telling the truth, you are not giving some biased information, in this case the trust also will be built and the cooperation will be increased. Also, the third one, which is the teacher role. The teacher role, we are giving instruction and providing training, involve analysis also and synthesis of learning experience. As a teacher, we have a teacher role in dealing with our client. We are teaching him how to perform some procedure for himself. Even how to take his medication, how to give self-injection, how to check his vital signs at home, because sometimes the client is in need for checking his vital signs at home or doing some procedure at home. So we are teaching them that. And also how to deal with any change in signs and symptom or any change in his case, what to do in those cases. So we are, in this case, teaching and training is there. We are also as a counselor role. Counselor role, helping the client to understand and integrate the meaning of the current life circumstances and provide guidelines and encouragement of making a change. But here, we have to understand what we mean by counseling. In counseling, we are not giving the solution for the client. There might be many solutions for any problems or any case. So, as a nurse or as a health professional, are you going to choose the solution for your client or to let the client choose the solution for himself? What do you think that it is better? If our client is choosing the solution by himself, or if we are having a ready-made solution and apply it to your client, to our client? Huh? Which one is?
Combination. Both.
Combination? How the combination will happen? Let me understand it.
By involving the patient.
Involving the client. Yes, we have to involve him. But here in counseling, if we are taking as an example, the contraceptive methods. If any ladies is coming and she want to use a contraceptive method, your role here is to explain all the contraceptive methods that it might be helpful, and then when you are explaining, you will tell her what kind of contraceptive methods that can be used, what's the advantage of them, what's the disadvantage of them. then she will choose one of them. But if we set that only you have to use the contraceptive pills, or you have to use the loops. Every one of them, it might have some benefit and some disadvantage. So if she got one of the side effects, she will say it was your choice, and because of your bad choice, I have those disadvantages. But if you explain all the methods, and you explain the advantage and disadvantage of each one of them, and she chose that method, we cannot oblige anyone to use a certain method. Or even we cannot oblige anyone to, can we oblige any patient to get a certain treatment? We can't. We are advising them, we are counseling them, we are giving rationale for taking this medication or taking this one. But we will not be obliged to do that. So it is the choice of the client. The fifth thing, which is the surrogate role, which helps the client clarify domain of dependence, independence, and interdependence, and act on the client's behalf as advocate. In the relationship, the problem, even that for the nurses, that there are some work that we are doing it, but it is interdependent. Yani, it means that it is linked with other professions, like giving medication. Giving medication, the consultant will advise for a certain medication, but we are the one who will give it to our client. So if we see a changes in our client, which is related to the medication that he is taking, also will transfer the information to the physician, to the specialist, and then he might change the medication. But we cannot change by ourselves. So the patient also should understand what's the limitation also that we can do, up to what level that we can directly be engaged in the treatment and in his case. Also leadership roles. So we help the client to assume the maximum responsibility for meeting treatment goals in the mutually satisfactory way. So we said that it is mostly the responsibility of our client, and we have to concentrate on the ability of the client to do that. The phases of relationship, as we said, we mentioned it in the introductory unit, and it is mostly 4 steps. The first one, which is the pre-interaction phase, which is here only one that the client does not have a direct participation on it, and it is creation of physical environment. So here, when we receive information that a new client will be coming to us, either from the source of referral, so in this case we have to be prepared and for dealing with that client. So still the client, we have not have any contact with our client, we are preparing ourselves to contact that client. Then we have the orientation phase. In the orientation phase, we have to clarifying the purpose of the relationship. What's the purpose of our relationship here? And establish a trust between us and our client. Identify the client need. Establishing trust from also the orientation phase itself. how we give the orientation for our client, how we identify also the need of our client. Also, this will be helpful. Participate the observations or participation and observe the progress of the relationships. Also, here we have to maintain that relationship. Defining the client problems, which is coming because we are doing assessment. So we will identify the client problem and try to plan for them. Defining the goal of our relationship. So we have to have a definite goals, and in order to fulfill it, that goals during that relationship. The phase of relationship, we have the working phase, then the working phase which is exploring active intervention, which is turning in client response patterns also, and diffusing the challenging behavior of the client. So we will see what are the challenge and what are the behavior of the client and how we can deal with them. We have to be self-disclosure. We have to be open with our client in relation to his case and his care, not open with our own information or social information. We have to be open in the therapeutic relationship. Then the last stage, which is the termination phase. And we said from the beginning that we have to prepare ourselves for the termination phase. So termination phase, it is not only when we are going for doing discharge for the client. Termination phase, it might be at the end of the shift, because if you receive a patient and it was the last day for you before the annual leave, you are taking leave. So your relationship, it will be during that shift, during that 8 hours. So you have to discuss that with the patient, that just I will deal with you for this shift and I am going on leave after that. So my colleagues will be continuing with that. It might be due to discharge or transfer from a unit to another unit. So in this case also, you will not be transferred with the client in the second unit in order to continue the care for him. In discharge, especially, and when the termination of the phase, sometimes we might have some dilemmas and some issues that we don't know. Do we have to accept it or not? For any relationship, there are sometimes at the end of the relationship, gift giving. What do you feel about that? As a health professional, are you accepting the gift from your client? What? Are you accepting gift from your client? No. Shall we accept it? Or what kind of a gift that might be accepted and what kind of gift that it might not be accepted?
We'll give the patient more care. This
Yeah.
is for gift for patient.
You mean that your care is a gift for your patient,
Yes.
but your care, it is from the your care, it is from the plans that from your own job. Yes.
This gift
Yeah.
is
So, I mean the gift. It might be the gift from your side, so you are mentioning the gift from your side, but it might be from the side of the client. So what's that? Might be the accepted thing. What might be the non-accepted thing? Because those issues, it differs according to the institution, also according to the society that we are working with in. There are many
You
relationships.
will accept or no?
Sorry,
You will accept or no?
for me,
Yes.
no. Why?
Why?
Why I will not accept? Because it is my job, and I am receiving my salary instead of that, isn't it? The institution is paying me for my job that I have to do with my clients. So I should not accept anything, especially if it is going toward money or for thing which is because in this case it is rashwa, it is not a. And if you are accepting some, what do you think if you are accepting something like money from a client, regardless wherever you are working, if you accept that, what is the expectation after that? What might be the expectation after that?
You will leave work.
Sorry?
You will want more.
You will leave your work? So this is according to the bylaws. According to the bylaws of the institution. In some institution, yes, if you are accepting something which is not accepted, in this case, you will be fired out. So it might be like this. But it is not only that thing. If you remember حديث الرسول عليه الصلاة والسلام لما أحد العاملين رجع وقال هذا لكم وهذا أهدي لي، فغضب الرسول عليه الصلاة والسلام وقال ألا جلس أحدكم في بيته فأهدي إليه؟ تذكرين الحديث هذا؟ ألا جلس أحدكم في بيته فأهدي إليه. You are taking that gift because of your position. So instead of that, how we can be polite in dealing with your client and also not saying that I will not receive it. It is not permitted. You can say that if it is money or something like this, or if it is something which is having a high value, you can give it to a charity. Thanking God that He helped you to get healthy instead of giving it to me. I am doing my own job. So I didn't deserve this kind of money, regardless to the respect. I want only the respect from you, and I am respecting you also.
The gift not will be money.
Sorry.
The gift not will be money.
And so it is. He can give it to a charity or يتبرع فيهم لمؤسسة instead of giving it to me. In some institution, if there is in the bylaws, if something is donation, or it will be a donation for the institution itself, not for the worker. So it might be a donation for the institution. It might be accepted for the institution itself, because in some institution they are بسموها مؤسسات غير ربحية. They are accepting some donation, but it is not for the worker. it is for the institution. It might be for the institution itself, helping the institution. Because, you know, if we are accepting something from any of our client, in this case, it might be a demand. The demand of them, it might be increased. So they might ask me about thing to do something that I should not do it in a behalf. And in this case, sometimes you might find yourself obliged to do that, even if it is going beyond the rules and regulation. Even sometimes it is dealt with some ethics and ethical views. So, because of that, always we should not get any benefit from our client, direct benefit from our client regarding it. It might be accepted to have some chocolate, but even though if he give me that box of chocolate, it is not for me. Mostly you will find it in the nursing station or the, and it is for all. So I will not take it home with me. It has to be for all. It might be accepted by the institution. In the also terminal phase, it is the evaluation of the in the evaluation phase here, we will evaluate the client and where do we reach in the objective, what's the thing that he has to be continue and to work on them after discharge, where he might be going for the follow-up if follow-up is needed. So those questions, it have to be answered by the nurse and by during the termination phase. So all of this, it has to be, we have to be prepared for it, and we have to be prepared from the beginning, not instantly, not at the time of discharge and cutting the relationship. Thank you. This is the end of the session. Any question?